Greetings, I'm Deletna Dawalko, back with another segment of our English news. President Debretsion Gebremichael says the air bombardment on civilians will only expedite the end of what he labeled as the fascist group. Dese and Kambolcha said that they're within TDF's artillery range, as well as diplomats say that Ethiopia is plunging into chaos and it's time for the new Dayton peace process. President of Tigray Regional State, Debretsion Gebremichael, says the air bombardment on the civilians will only expedite the end of what he has labeled as the fascist group. Debretsion Gebremichael, in a statement posted on his official social media platform, says that the ongoing fascistic measures targeting civilians will not spare Abiy's group from its inevitable doom. Debretsion said the successive military victories registered by the Tigray armed forces in the last few days are turning points driving to the enemies that the noose is tightening around their necks. He added that the aerial strikes against civilians point to the desperate measures the fascist group takes on the eve of their demise. These desperate actions by the fascist forces will only strengthen our resolve and expedite their end, and it will not protect them from their inevitable defeat, he said. The president also called on the public to take precautionary measures. UN says civilians injured in a new airstrike yesterday in Ma'ala, capital of Ethiopia's Tigray region, including women, children, were injured following the airstrikes on Wednesday, and UN spokesperson Farhan Haq told the reporters in New York, citing initial information. Ethiopian government airstrikes hit the capital of northern Tigray region and the third such attack this week, and the airstrikes on Monday killed 3 children. Australia expresses deep concern at reports of airstrikes on the Tigray capital of Ma'ala and the escalation of conflict in northern Ethiopia. Australia condemned the ongoing fight, use of sexual violence, and severe restrictions on humanitarian access. As the conflict nears its 1-year anniversary, it continues to have devastating impact on the lives of the civilians. Australia called on all parties to the conflict to exercise restraint and end the violence immediately. Humanitarian agencies must also be allowed to provide urgent life-saving support to the millions of people impacted by this catastrophe. Tigrayan Canadian call on Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to stop Canada's support for the war on Tigray. In a letter they sent to the Prime Minister, Tigrayan Canadians said it's past time for the Canadian government to take concrete action to help and end the atrocities at hand. Timnit Bayru has more.
Tigrayan Canadians asked the Government of Canada to join the United States and other allies in taking concrete steps to help stop the suffering and death of countless innocent people whose only crime is their ethnicity. To date, the Government of Canada has not even denounced the ongoing war crimes and crimes against humanity that Ethiopia and its allies are committing in Tigray. Moreover, it has continued to provide financial assistance to the Ethiopian government, which stands credibly accused of genocide. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has branded himself and his foreign policy as environmentally conscious and feminist. But one of the biggest recipients of Canadian development assistance is the Ethiopian government, which has launched a brutal war on the people of Tigray, a war which has specifically targeted women, and from which Canadian mining companies are profiting. The letter said, "The lives lost in Tigray are real people and not mere statistics. To Tigrayan Canadians, they are our mothers, fathers, sisters, and brothers." In recent months, several reports have emerged that point to the link between Canadian mining interests in Tigray and the Canadian government's tepid response to the humanitarian catastrophe. Reporting by The Breach showed that Canada has spent $15 million to support mining in Ethiopia. Since 2016 alone, $12 million of Canada's international aid has been spent on Ethiopia's mining sector. The report additionally notes that the stated objective of Canadian foreign assistance, including environmental protection, gender equality, and corporate responsibility, have not been met, suggesting that the mining interests trump other considerations in Canada's engagement with the Ethiopian government. Canada's ongoing financial support to a genocidal regime in Ethiopia must not be tolerated by the Canadian public or our elected officials, they stated.
Military command announced that their forces have taken control of the towns of Bisitima, Haik, and the strategic heights of Mariyi. The Ethiopian Cable, a bi-weekly open sources news summary published by Sahan, said Dese and the Kambolcha are now within Tigray Armed Forces artillery range. On the other hand, a huge number of Ethiopian National Defense Force and Amhara forces are being deployed in and around Desse to defend the city from Tigray armed forces, and the Ethiopian cable has disclosed that the sources said the Ethiopian government has declared a curfew in the Debre Birhan city. According to the Ethiopian cable, again, this seems to indicate that the Ethiopian government is almost certain that the strategic city of Desse will fall to TDF in the coming hours, and that they are now preparing for Tigray forces to inevitably march to Addis Ababa. Debre Birhan city is located at the A2 highway and is only 130 kilometers away from the city of Addis Ababa. EU's Foreign Affairs Council agrees to prepare the groundwork for sanctions of Ethiopia. Joseph Borrell Fontel's High Representative for the European Union of Foreign Affairs said the security policy made the announcement during the Foreign Affairs Council press conference on Monday. He was quoted saying, on the request of several member states, an equivalent to that so-called Maginistic Act of the United States. He also is Joseph Borrell, who's also Vice President of the European Commission, said Tigray shattered by the systematic violations of human rights, war crimes, and crimes against humanity used as a weapon. Diplomats say that Ethiopia is plunging into chaos and that it's time for the new Dayton peace process. Alex Randos, former EU Special Representative to the Horn of Africa, and Mark Medish, who served on the Dayton Peace Implementation Team and at the U.S. Treasury and National Security Council in the Clinton administration, said millions are starving and time to avert a descent into chaos it is running out. According to the two diplomats, that is moment to prepare for the concerted international actions to prevent further drift and to focus on the diplomacy on a comprehensive settlement, saying nothing less than a Dayton-style peace process with visible American and neighbor-led daily engagements will pull Ethiopia back from their brink. Sanctions certainly provide a leverage but may not be enough, and military intervention or occupation is not an option in a country twice the size of Afghanistan, which is already sliding into civil war. Rondos and Medish noted that the diplomats added the crisis will require a diplomacy and a mediation on a scale not seen since 1995 Dayton peace process to end the bloody war that happened in Bosnia. According to the two diplomats, the Ethiopian government's blockade of Tigray is turning the region into the 21st century ghetto. They mentioned how late last year Ethiopia restricted the flow of humanitarian assistance, and a violation of international law, cutting all of banking, electricity, and communications. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has unleashed a famine. He decides who starves and who doesn't, and inter-ethnic atrocities have been committed primarily against the Tigrayans, but the Oromo, Amhara, and the other ethnic groups are also at grave risk, the diplomats added. The diplomats are the view that future political settlement should include lifting the blockade and immediately opening for humanitarian access in Tigray and other regions. The withdrawal of the Eritrean troops and the commitment to non-intervention by neighboring powers, as well as recommending the release of political prisoners. Negotiations of new political balance for Ethiopia with substantial regional autonomy and a fair system of fiscal federalism and provision of an independent commission to investigate abuse of power. That concludes our news for the day. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you tomorrow.